If I could compare the effects of social media in our lives and our society, I'd compare it to a pacifier. Imagine a baby who is crying and moaning for no apparent reason. What would you do? You'd hand over a small, comforting object that either soothes or distracts the baby. The internet, particularly social media, possesses the same characteristics. In a world where our physical needs are being met pretty well, we start looking for ways to quench our spiritual deprivation and to seek comfort. The internet is that comfort. I'd like to begin by introducing a concept called tittytainment, and although the name itself doesn't sound very inviting, I promise that the theory makes a lot of sense under the context of our society today. This theory was originally proposed in a German nonfiction book called The Global Trap in 1966. The book divides the future of the working population into two halves, the top 20% and the rest of the 80%. The 20% refers to the rich and wealthy, people who create value and drive innovation that keeps the economy going. The 80% refers to everyone else, the poor people, the ordinary, the marginalized, the overlooked. Tittytainment is entertainment that is made to particularly target this 80% of society. Its mass-produced content keeps people busy, distracting them from dissatisfaction within their lives by flooding their brains with intense emotions and stimulating content. And although this theory was originally proposed under the context of globalization, it is still applicable to our society today. Because even if we're not within that 80% of society, we often lose ourselves in endless spirals of TikTok, celebrity gossip, and video games. Now, the reason why this is so intriguing is that there's two reasons for why the soothing process is so magical. Firstly, it is not a coincidence. That's why I use the word pacifier instead of breastfeeding to describe it. Big social media platforms are purposely designed to trap in your attention. The algorithm analyzes your behavior on these platforms, what videos you liked, what influencers you followed, and even how long you paused on each video. Using these data, they create a personalized and tailored feed just for you to keep you attracted. Secondly, the process just doesn't happen overnight. It takes months, perhaps years, for the effects to actually sink in. But once you instinctively become addicted to it, you become prone to falling into its claws. Now, the word soothe may not be the most accurate, because most of the content that we see are actually meant to trigger some kind of emotional response from us, whether that is happiness, sadness, anger, or desire. The mechanisms of short videos are designed to produce rapid pleasures that stimulate the brain's dopamine system, triggering the release of these neurotransmitters that activate the brain's dopamine system and produces pleasure. TikTok videos, like the ones behind me, often contain flashy fonts, bright transitions, and repetitive sound effects, all of which are meant to trigger some kind of sensory responses from us and makes us feel excited, even if we're not aware. But it is precisely these features that create a false sense of soothingness. Because when our brains become constantly stimulated to these type of content, our brains become numb in the process of dopamine desensitization. And we feel a kind of emotional indifference within. So does social media really soothe us? Yes, but by making us feel empty rather than calm. The integration of social media into our lives isn't a bad thing, but it's not a good thing either, because we're starting to see its negative impacts on our biology, in particular, sleep. I feel like as a society these days, we often underestimate the impacts of sleep because, it's not really important and you can't really do anything fun when you're doing it. But when our consciousness is drifting away, our brain and our body is still active and awake. Otherwise, we just stop breathing, right? Anyways, if you're someone who likes going on TikTok or Instagram before you go to bed, it messes with the production of melatonin in your body. So it actually makes it harder for you to go to sleep. And it also messes with the sleep quality. But if you're thinking, yeah, but if I watch YouTube Shorts, that makes me fall asleep quicker. That's probably because your brain gets so soothed that it becomes numb and you tire out. Take that a step further and say you like falling asleep between 2 or 3 a.m. Your poor brain doesn't get the chance to rewind from the highly stimulating content that you've been watching all day. Society has already started to see these impacts. For example, the creation of sleep procrastination. And yes, that is a thing, precisely because social media is eating away our desire to go to bed. For example, in China in 2022, the average time that Chinese netizens were falling asleep at was between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., which is really late. Looking at where we are now, in the future, we might all be walking off with messed up sleep schedules, incapable brains, and a couple mental illnesses each, right? But it is also possible that our brains lose the capacity to think, in which case we would become the babies, and social media would truly become our pacifier. So now that I've raised the question, it's time to give a solution, right? Except there isn't one. There just isn't one. I'd be very, very hypocritical if I said, oh, just don't go on your phones. Because I'm a massive phone addict, and my average screen time during holidays is 9 hours. So I can't really say anything myself, except share some tips that experts have all shared before. Firstly, be conscious when using social media. By that I mean bear in mind its harms when using it. And that should be pretty easy to do now that you've heard my speech, right? So just bear in mind that it can also pose inherent dangers. Secondly, don't use your phone before bedtime. Have a chat or read a book. Let your brain rest so you can wake up tomorrow feeling refreshed and energized. Lastly, disconnect and unplug yourself from the virtual world. Remember, the internet is a tool. We should ensure that this tool serves us, not the other way around. Thank you.